Still not sure why exactly I like this emerging from the darkness thing, but here we are. Some reflections on the sonnet and the form with which I thought I was just going to be approaching the sonnet, that being the double sonnet, as I call it. Basically, I'm doubling the size of the octet and introducing a more complicated rhyme and rhythm scheme to keep it moving. I'm I thought that this was going to be just a step toward the sonnet. Remember, I haven't written a sonnet in something like 25 years, or I hadn't until granted. I was taking Greg Williamson's, the poet Greg Williamson's class in formal poetry at Johns Hopkins when I probably should have been working in the English department at that time. Maybe I would have finished that doctorate. I can't write under direction, but I digress. I'm glad I was able to write a sonnet. Except for the rhyme scheme, it didn't really turn me on, and I find some things about the form itself, which, uh, to my surprise, I find myself disliking. It invites the lyric mode much more than the villanelle, and much more with the much more than the double sonnet does. One of the things I liked about the double sonnet, I was trying to put together something that was inspired by the old Soviet realist aesthetic, something that embraced what the poet Mayakovsky referred to as the great we of communism. Uh, my politics do run more anarchist than communist. I'll have to make another video about politics. But there's something about the sonnet itself which does seem to occupy that lyric mode. It's a particular self who's speaking. And for a particular self to speak in that way with the volta, in which the speaker changes his mind or further articulates some earlier made point, I don't find the speaker of the sonnet to be a particularly likable person. A bit of a smartass. And I'm enough of a smartass myself. I don't need to write a smartass also. It's a very strange reaction that I'm having. I'm still trying to process it. But I don't think I'm going to be writing a lot of sonnets. I think I'm going to actually make the double sonnet into a thing. Let me talk about what I got done last week. It's been a little while since now where is this? There we are. I'm still doing this in the dark. I just don't know what. Well, for one thing, it helps hide this background. Um, the Wilkinsburg Double Sonnet. This is my first chapbook. I've published a whole bunch of times in the last couple of few years, since 2019, at least 10 times after not publishing at all. But this is my first chapbook. It is the Wilkinsburg Double Sonnets. And the first one is a relatively ordinary lyric poem. But then the next two, there are only three of these in this truly slim volume, really require a collective voice. It's almost absurd to think about. Let me read this alone. We who steer the weather of the world. And tell yourself, is this really supposed to be a person speaking this? This is a double sonnet. Houston drowns from Greenland's melt upswelled, sacrifices gobbled by this proud Anthropocene, nor does heated air relent upon the evergreen. Coastal wood from wind-blown flame is felled. Orange ash is lifted, then dispelled. Time for plucking carbon atoms from the sky is spent. Time has come to curb the sun's impress by 2%. Action verging hubris is compelled. 50 years irradiance withheld, slightly interrupted by an ultra-thin machine. At an early glance, at an early glance appears a thin and single screen, though this angel's wing is multi-celled. 16 trillion disks all pulse repelled. 50 years protection underneath our shelter tent. Global warming shuddered and become a non-event. All the smoking pipes have been expelled. We will steer the weather of the world. Aqueduct the wanton appetite run uncontrolled. Inward selves evolve to match what things the mind can mold. Vast and still is our machine unfurled. We will steer the weather of the world. Shaken just some innocence off wildernesses old. Even though we emanate Versailles 10,000-fold, and the orbit of the earth impearled. Soon to be on sale at my website, Todd Jackson Poetry Todd Jackson Poetry.com, actually. What I've done is gotten a few friends together and got them to provide a reading of this and the next poem in the Wilkinsburg Double Sonnets, the title of which is Courteous the Self, Superfluous the State. It, like we who steer the weather of the world, is really meant to have a collective voice, and it's going to have 4 of us. 3 men, 1 woman. 2 of the men and the woman are Americans. 1 of the men is African, is Kenyan. And I think that's going to add a nice different vocal dynamism to this once I can figure out how to actually mix sounds. This is something I've never done before. I've never done anything like this. I'm still experimenting, and I'm a boomer, okay? So give me a break here. Well, you'll see. I'm going to start mixing this. You just heard We Who Steer the Weather of the World, spoken by me. I think it sounds weird, actually. Spoken by an individual person. Who the hell is this person who's speaking this poem? Lex Luthor? I mean, it has to be a speaker who suggests the whole planet. I think 4 people will do just fine. All right. Another thing I'm going to be working on this week, we're heading into Halloween, and I've got a Halloween poem in mind. We have to get into another dimension of me that's going to be there and present in a great deal of my writing. The part of me that is pagan / polytheist. That's probably the most single important part of me to me. I live in a very active relationship with the gods. Let me light up in that light. Let me light up another cinnamon stick for Apollo. I just walk around and do this all the time. It's very strange. Well, it's not strange at all. It's just me. Nothing strange about it. Atheists always ask that question. Do you what? Do you have invisible friends? Yeah, I have invisible friends. Deal with it. In light of that, in light of my being pagan and polytheist, I think I'm going to make a video out of uh, the villanelle uh, she who severs soul from bone with knives, dedicated to the goddess Hekate. That's not exactly what the athame is for, so I'm taking a few liberties, but I talked about wanting to write a badass poem. That wasn't a badass poem. That was a good poem. The end rhymes were really kicking. I'm talking about Granted, which you can see on the channel. I wouldn't call that a badass poem. She who severs soul from bone with knives is a badass villanelle. Um, and you're about to find out because I'm going to make a video about this in the next couple of days while I'm struggling to figure out what to do with mixing sounds. And I'm going to put this out, and this will be my Halloween treat to you, and to me as well. Once I figure out how to finish building the store, you all can buy this, the Wilkinsburg Double Sonnets. I had to print out a bunch of copies, 50 copies myself from Staples, because the print on demand services don't believe that a book of poems should consist of 3 poems. Well, these are 3 big poems. Uh, you'll find that out yourself. This is going to, once it's put together, it's going to be a beautiful thing. I'm very confident of that. These poems belong together. They belong bound together, one way or another. 12:40. Do I have time for one more? Yeah, let's do it. Besides, this is going to be a single voice poem. I'm not getting my friends together to do a collective reading of this one. You, the dead, defer to me. The first line is, you, the dead, defer to me. In the shining ones my seeds are sown. Though you lesser daimons get your bone, I reverse our piety. I compel you to agree. Goddess gets Chablis and quiche Lorraine. You the dead I charm with sugar cane. Suck on this and work for me. We the living will be free. Revolution shoots a pheromone. Catch the scent of it, the breeze has blown. We're no feckless bourgeoisie. Hid within the dust we see. All your ancient lives I now entrain. Much better word. Crack them with a whip of hurricane. Crack the castle to debris. You the future will be free. Make of me your eager stepping stone. Rip my will to shreds and write your own. Stir the scraps into your tea. Sip and plot your destiny. Each of the poems in the Wilkinsburg Double Sonnets begins a conversation which will continue in later poems. So this is an important little book for me. But I really did expect this book to be the end of the double sonnet for me. I expected to be just writing sonnets. I think I'm going to stick with the double sonnet. The form has a heft to it. And I'll be talking about it more. 15 minutes is plenty long for a video. I'm going to stop this one here, go to sleep. I'm going to take one of my Dr. Berg sleeping pills and go to sleep. 8 hours tomorrow on the phones. It's going to be a hard working week. I hope you enjoy yours. Remember, if you want the room to smell like Apollo or to invoke Apollo, oh no, just light up a cinnamon stick. That's the easiest way to do it. Laurel leaves are great, but something about this cinnamon stick just gets the job done. And you will feel yourself inspired. Night, night, as we used to say back in the 80s. Kiss yourself for me, baby.